girl, the horror stories. Like, look at this one right here. Ugh. In today's video, we are breaking down the pros and the cons to investing in Section 8 rentals and Section 8 real estate. Hey, I'm Nana. I'm a former practicing real estate attorney. I have wholesaled, I've been a realtor, and I even had over 20 Airbnbs at one point, but now I focus on buy and hold long-term investing, and I'm sharing my journey along the way. And if you want help starting your own real estate portfolio, or if you're already a landlord and you're looking to get consistent guaranteed rent checks, go ahead and check out my free Section 8 investing guide in the description box below. And if you don't know, Section 8 is basically a government program that helps to subsidize the rent of people that are low income. So they will pay a portion, if not all, of the tenant's rent. So the biggest and most obvious pro and benefit to investing in Section 8 rentals is going to be guaranteed rental income, because the government is going to pay, like I said just now, the majority, if not all, of the tenant's rent. So you are getting guaranteed rent income every single month because the government is the one who is funding it. And on top of that, in my opinion, and based on the stats, tenants that are Section 8 are also more motivated to even pay their portion of the rent if they do have a portion to pay. So let's say maybe they have to pay 10, 20, 30% of the rent every single month. They're more motivated to do that because a lot of times people on Section 8 have been waiting for their Section 8 voucher to be approved to actually get into one of these properties for years at a time. They can wait anywhere from 2 to 10 years depending on what state they're in. So they're highly motivated to hold on to that voucher. And having guaranteed rent for your rental property is a benefit in any economy, but especially when we have economic uncertainty. Like if there's a recession coming, or tariffs, who knows what's going on. It's nice to know that you've got this backup. It's nice to know that you've got this guarantee that at the beginning of the month, your rent is going to be paid. You'll be able to cover your mortgage, and hopefully you'll be making some cash flow income if you do things the right way. Versus, a traditional rental where if there is an economic downturn, if there's a recession, they may struggle to be able to pay their rent because they need to pay for food and pay for other things, or they just choose not to pay you, and that sucks balls. The second benefit is going to be that you'll get long-term tenants. And the reason being is that not enough landlords actually rent to Section 8 voucher holders. So when they find a good place to stay, a good quality home, they are more likely to stay there for years on end. And when you have less turnover, you have less vacancy, you have less expenses out of your pocket, because every time you have to move a tenant out or move a new tenant in, that's going to cost you money. You have vacancy for months on end, you're not getting paid rent no matter what. So long-term tenants means long-term stability for you and your asset, your rental property. Another pro is that you're going to have a huge pool of tenants to actually choose from, because there, again, are so many tenants, because there are millions of people with housing vouchers, especially in this economy where housing affordability is at an all-time low. A Harvard study, and I'll share it somewhere here, actually stated that 50% of Americans cannot afford to pay their rent, meaning you're spending, I think the recommendation is to only spend 30% of your income on your rent. But Americans nowadays, 50% of them at least, are spending way more than that. So way more than their income on the rent. So the need for affordable housing is so huge right now. So you will consistently and always have a large pool of tenants that want to be on this program or that are already in the program. And so you can pick and choose who you want. You're never going to have to be searching for a pool of tenants. And surprisingly, you can also have better profit margins when you rent to Section 8 tenants, because depending on your location, the housing agency, as a way to incentivize landlords to actually rent to Section 8 tenants and join the program, they are willing to pay sometimes 110, 120 plus percent of the average market rent in your area. So let's say the average rent for a 3-bedroom in your neighborhood is $1,200. Section 8 may be willing to pay $1,500, $1,600, etc. And I just made those numbers up. I didn't do math. But you get the point. They're willing to pay, like in my area right now, they pay up to 120% of the average market rent here in Las Vegas. So because Las Vegas has a huge waiting list and a huge pool of tenants for Section 8, they are trying to get landlords to rent to them. Now let's talk about the cons. Number one, you don't have full control on what you can do with your property because it has to pass a strict inspection done by the housing authority. And these standards are set by HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So if you don't pass these standards, you're not going to get paid. Your tenants are not going to be able to move in. You need to make these repairs. Now, I don't see this as a huge con because I like to buy pretty turnkey properties that don't need crazy amounts of work. And two, I keep my properties in good condition. I'm not a slumlord. Not to say that you are if you don't pass inspection, because that can happen because they are very strict. But I have no problem if there's something they need me to fix. I have no problem fixing it. But it is something that you need to keep in mind because you are going to have to fix whatever issues there are. Another con could be lower rent caps. So I know I just said that, you know, they're generally willing to pay way more than the average market rent. That does depend on the area. So if you are in an area that doesn't have a high demand for rent, it can cap how much you can make with your rental property because you can't just decide on what you want to charge for rent. You request what you want and then they'll come back to you with what they're going to give you. Now, if you know how to negotiate and you buy in the right area, this is not going to be an issue for you. The third con is going to be misconception about tenants and also bad tenants. I'll share some of the Reddit comments that I found about, you know, horror stories. And then this one in particular that I shared in the beginning, these tenants moved out and they left basically a shit show at the property. And this is something that no landlord wants. So this is a con. However, I think this is a con for anyone that decides to be a landlord and doesn't screen their tenants well, because I have seen traditional tenants, you know, market rate non-Section 8 tenants do this kind of damage as well. And it all comes down to how well did you screen. I think people just assume that all Section 8 tenants are bad and all Section 8 tenants are going to do this kind of damage to your property, but that's not true. I have great Section 8 tenants that treat my property really well. I'll share some pictures or video or something of how my properties look during an inspection. And that's because I took the time to really screen my tenants extremely well, even more than I would with market rate tenants, even though honestly, you should be doing this for any kind of tenant because people are wild. And if you want help with that, go ahead and check out my free Section 8 quick start guide in the description box below. And then the final con that I'll share is that there can be delayed payments set up. So that initial payment that you're going to get from Section 8 when you find a tenant that you like and you pass inspection, you move them in, they can take a couple of weeks to actually make that initial payment. So that is a con if you are strapped for money and you don't have the money to actually make that first mortgage payment. But this is why you need to plan really well, have great lenders and a great system in place so that you are already set and ready to go. And so if they do happen to take a little while to make that first payment, you are covered because they're going to make that payment and the back payment. So let's say it takes them a month to get to you, right? To make the payment to you. They're going to pay you the month they owe you plus the current month. So it's not like, oh, you're always going to be behind. You want to make sure that you are covered and good to go so that you're not ass out on the other end because you have a mortgage payment due, right? We want to make sure we're making smart financial decisions and not getting ourselves into trouble. And like I said, the good news is once they are set up and going and depositing into your bank account, they are pretty reliable. I have not had any bad experience or delays with any of my payments since that initial payout. And these are guaranteed. And my housing authority actually likes to pay early. They usually pay on the 30th or the 31st, which I love. And then I have great tenants that also pay me pretty early. I have tenants that either pay me usually on the 30th, 31st, or at least on the 1st. So meaning their portion of the rent. So again, if you want help with this, go ahead and check my description box below to get started. For me, Section 8 has been an absolute game changer. I like the slow, easy, lazy kind of approach to real estate investing. And if that's you, go ahead and check out this next video here, because when you pair it together with this one, you'll be even further along on your real estate investing journey.